Today I'm going to be talking about the problems facing AAA game companies. All of their problems today are caused by one root problem, which they are trying to impress stockholders with unsustainable growth each year at the expense of consumers. This has led them to take less risks and milk every penny from their products. Instead of making new exciting games and innovating, they stagnate and clone the same games each year, and people are getting sick of it. They have realized early on that they can't just clone a game because people won't just buy an exact replica. So they have had to make enhancements somewhere, and they've chosen to do this graphically. And this is where the first problem arises. You can make a lot of money making the same game each year. However, the price of upgrading the graphics gets very expensive each year. In fact, the price of graphics are exponentially rising every 10 years. This graph here shows that about every 10 years, a game costs 10 times the amount of money to make. And although making the same game each year for many years has been making them a lot of money, shows that they're finally starting to reach a point where they're not making as much money as they used to. And they realized the most expensive part is releasing and making a game. So what they wanted to do was make fewer games and make more money from them. And how they went about doing this was by making games that were incomplete, launching them in pre-alpha, so they were glitchy and needed updates. And then what they would do is they would add expansion packs, which would cost more than half of the original price of the game, and would only give you more maps. And within a single game, there might be 3 or more expansion packs. However, even with expansion packs, they had to find something else that was even more sustainable and more lucrative. That's where the loot crate comes into play. A loot crate is something you can spend real money on getting fake currency and purchasing it, and sometimes it gives you items or stuff that actually improves your gameplay, which it creates this pay-to-play element, which I'll talk about more in a moment. But where they originated were probably in the mobile games market, where someone would launch a free game, and they'd have it based on every few hours you can make something in this game. However, if you want to rush the process, you could spend some money and have it finished immediately, giving you an advantage over your competition. But that isn't when AAA game companies started putting them into their games. When AAA companies started putting them into their games was after Dota 2. It was made by a AAA company. And instead of charging money for this game, they had it completely free. And you might wonder how that would make money at all. But they, with the addition of buying skins and cosmetics and loot crates as well, Dota 2 was able to generate $18 million a month from this. When AAA game companies like EA started adding loot crates into their games, they did it in a very predatory way. And also the games they gave you were not free. You still had to pay $60 for them. And there would be expansion packs. And you would have to have loot crates to help your gameplay, or get gun skins you want, or any other cosmetics. In the third quarter of 2015, 47% of EA's digital revenue came from microtransactions, or loot crates. This is a substantial amount of their income, because in 2015, 69% of their sales came from digital, as opposed to physical sales. This is a bad business model for several reasons. The first being that they're not focused on making fun games anymore. They're focused on breaking games and making them fun with loot crates or microtransactions. Second, some countries believe that AAA game companies are targeting children, and specifically in an underage gambling way. Big companies do this by making loot crates and microtransactions more like a slot machine rather than just buying something that they want. And finally, people don't like loot crates, and they're starting to get angry at EA and AAA companies that are using these practices. With all of the bad practices facing AAA companies today, I believe that indie games will make up a larger share of the market and eventually eclipse AAA games of today.